What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I've got for you a very special video. In this one, I'll be ranking the top 10 posts from r/TraumatizeThemBack from the past month. That's right, there's not just going to be a few separate stories in this one. There are going to be 10 different posts. I think that actually might be the most stories I've ever read in one episode. Now, I'm going to rate them as I go along based on how severe the comeback is and how satisfying it is as well. I'm not 100% sure on the criteria, but it's going to be pretty much ranking the best to the worst of these top 10. And importantly, I want you guys to do the same as well in the comments down below after you've listened to all 10 stories. So make sure you stay for the entire episode. Give me your ranking, and then let's see how we differ and how you differ to other people in the comments. So without further ado, sit back, relax, get ready to rank these stories with me. Let's jump into the first Traumatize Them Back post. My father-in-law deserved it. Now this one has the tag of epic burn / needs burn cream, so we should be in for a good one to start things off. My SO and I were living together in sin, according to my father-in-law, with another couple as roommates. This is a man who kept changing his religion until he found one that was very patriarchal to suit his ideas. I love my long-suffering mother-in-law and the siblings, one older, one younger. Brendan, about 15 at this point. For several months, he refused to step into our sinful home, berating us for adultery. The only reason for two people to sleep together was for adding children to God's flock, etc. But finally, he came by for tea and to keep up the tirade. He'd been talking about sex / procreation again when I stopped him with a phrase that caught his immediate attention. You know, I said, I really admire you. You do? Oh yeah, just think. I know how much you love your wife, and to think, you haven't touched her in 15 years, not since Brendan was born. That's taken a lot of willpower. He looked at us all sitting there, looking at him, and he shut right up. And actually, he stopped bugging us about it from then on. There we go. Strong start to this episode. Now, with no other stories being read out, that has to go in at number 1. But I reckon there's room for improvement. It's a good burn, but it's what I expect on this subreddit. I wouldn't say it's anything special. Okay, Traumatize Them Back post number 2. Scammer couldn't hang up fast enough. Another story reminded me of this incident. It's the only time I ever got a scammer to leave me alone. Obligatory context. I was going through a really hard period of time when this took place. Honestly, the worst period of my life. Things are much better for me now, and I have a life I love. I've been plagued by a scammer who seemed to call every 2 hours on my days off. I'd been at work this day, but as I was unlocking the door, I heard my phone start going. I dashed to pick it up because I was waiting for news from my parents about my unwell baby nephew. The scammer said, "Hello, is this OP?" I'd had a terrible day, and the last thing I needed was this scammer calling all evening. I burst into tears and said, "I'm sorry, she passed away last night. Did you know her well?" Click. I never got another scam call for the whole time I was in that house. Okay, very good. And there's nothing better, I think, than getting revenge on these horrible scammers. I mean, there are YouTube channels out there, which I'm sure you guys know of, that just do genuinely the God's work. They're so good and so funny. And yeah, scam callers, awful. They honestly do not care about how you're doing in life. They prey on the vulnerable. So I'm surprised, actually, that this person actually hung up. Normally, they go after people that are mourning. So, yeah, good stuff. Because I hate scammers so much, I think this goes into number 1, and the first story drops down to number 2. Okay, now moving on to number 3. I watched him sink into the floor, and it was so satisfying. The tag here is clever comeback. That could really tempt me to push this into number 1. Let's see. In brackets, women talk. I began menstruating in 7th grade, age 11, still in primary school where I'm from. I had terrible dysmenorrhea, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and ovarian cysts. I was in the playground during recess when I was cornered by one teacher, Mr. May. He didn't like me. I was too smart of a girl for him. He began, "I need to talk to you. You're absent way too often. Every month, you miss at least one day." I stood still, with other students stopping to see what was going on. "Every single month," he went on. I stared at him. Honestly, I didn't know what to say, but I was determined not to be embarrassed. I just stared and said, Yes. And you could see the frown change to a look of horror as the light dawned in his eyes. He turned 3 shades of red. He started to stammer and then stopped and scurried away. I truly believe that minor confrontation gave me the strength to stand up for myself from then on, and I became a very self-assured teenager and adult woman. There we go. Pretty good stuff. I think, to be honest, this story gets let down by the fact that you didn't say to him, yes, and I get my period once every month, or something along those lines, or like, yeah, and what happens to girls every month, or something like that. I think that would have been more of a burn, although it was implied, and I think he understood what you were saying, but I'm not 100% sure. For that reason, I'm going to put it in third. I just feel like there could have been more of a burn. You could have owned him in front of everyone. I don't know if you owned him enough. Okay, now moving on to number 4. Sailor did what hot sauce could not. I was the recipient of the trauma here. Interesting, okay. In the olden days, when I was a child, sometime last century, around the late 70s, I was a stubborn thumbsucker. The conversation is approximate, by the way. While I remember the event, I can only guess at what was actually said, but I've done my best. Anyway, I mean that quite literally. My thumb was my comfort, and nobody could take it away from me. My parents tried bitterants and Tabasco, and I don't remember what else. I do remember sneaking a glass of water to bed and dunking my thumb in the water to deal with the Tabasco. Nothing they did would stop me. Even social stigma didn't stop me. Looking back, it probably made it worse, as I sought comfort from being ridiculed. That is strange, but fair enough. Then, this happened. I was a Girl Scout brownie at the time, so probably around 6 or 7 years old, and our troop had the opportunity to tour a US Navy vessel. We lined up to go on the ship, carefully crossing the gangplank, under the supervision of one of the sailors standing on the ship side of the approach. As I crossed, thumb securely in my mouth, nervous about the crossing, the sailor helped me onto the ship. And then, "Young lady, if you don't stop sucking your thumb, it's going to fall off." Following my eye roll at him, he held out his hand with only a nub where his thumb was supposed to be. I speak from experience. I suggest you learn from my mistake. Guys, that thumb came out, hand went behind my back, thumb wrapped in a fist as I attempted to protect it, and the thumb sucking never happened again. That is very, very good. I love that from the sailor. I also love the fact that you, OP, are explaining your own trauma that's happened to you. Straight into number 1. That is by far the best one so far. Okay, number 5. It's just a joke? Sure, I'll laugh. So, this was several years ago when I was still in school. 13 or 14 years old, as anxious and awkward as everyone else. Now, I don't know why, but for some reason, a small group of boys in my class had come up with a certain game. In the middle of class, while the teacher was looking at the blackboard, they would reach forward and snap the bra strap of whatever unassuming girl was sitting in front of them, trying to unhook them through their shirts. Several times, I remember girls very quietly asking their seat neighbor to help them fix it, but never speaking up. I very clearly remember the embarrassment I felt when one of them succeeded on me, anxiously excusing myself to go to the bathroom and fix it while they were laughing. I remember asking them to stop the break after that, only to be told not to be a female dog, it's just a joke. Now, something about that word stuck with me. So I waited, and of course, it happened again. But this time, instead of sinking through the floor in shame, I throw my head back and start howling with laughter, startling the heck out of everyone in class, including the boys behind me and my maths teacher. I played in the school theatre. I can get loud. Before anyone can even start to ask questions, I turn around in my seat, smiling sweetly at the jokesters, and announce, again, loud enough for everyone to hear, "What's wrong? I thought unhooking the girls' bras was your joke. Why aren't you laughing?" The teacher, looking at me completely horrified, asked what I was talking about, and I, still playing innocent and naive, happily explained what had been going on while the boys just started looking more and more uncomfortable. When the teacher asked if anyone else had experienced this, several girls raised their hands. The boys got detention, and the school had an assembly on sexual harassment. It was a good day. That is great, because not only have you got some great revenge, you're also teaching not just those boys, but also everyone in your school about you know, how bad this is. Because these kids aren't very old, are they? I mean, you're 13, 14. You should know better. But still, you know, you're young at that point. You've not fully sort of grasped the world, and you haven't really got your own moral compass yet. Maybe I'm being a little bit too easy on these guys. But at 13 and 14, did I really know what was going on? Did I really know right from wrong? I wouldn't have done this, is what I will say. But I'll give them a little bit of lenience. However, what you did, phenomenal. First of all, just actually really funny as well. Imagine they're shocked. They're like, what are you laughing at? Well, you said it was a joke. But yeah, you've told everyone else in that class as well to stand up for themselves, because imagine if everyone just kept quiet. And look, don't get me wrong. I don't really blame the girls for keeping quiet. It's a terrible thing that's happening to them, and it's obviously extremely uncomfortable. But you took one for the team. You stuck your neck out, and yeah, I can tell you're a drama kid, because I would not have the courage to do that. So fair play. Well done to you. Now, the question is, where does it rank? You know what? I think because of the education that you've sort of caused by doing this, the fact that you've caused an assembly on sexual harassment by doing this, it goes up to number 1 for me. Look, the sailor one was great, but ultimately it was just a girl sucking her thumb. This is teaching boys not to do this because it's extremely serious and is sexual harassment. Up to number 1. Okay, now we're into the second half of the post. This is number 6. Don't ask a question if you aren't ready for the answer. I was meeting my in-laws, and I was warned that my father-in-law tends to be inappropriate as a way to make other people uncomfortable. He's harmless, just a jerk. So, while we were there, father-in-law starts drinking. Then he said, here's a way you can tell a lot about a woman. Are you shaved or natural? Then he looked at my crotch. What the heck? Like, maybe I'm going too far here, but if the girl that I was dating, if their parents said something like that to me, I actually don't think I could be with that girl anymore. Is that unfair? Like, you're marrying into that family, and I know like the girl is her own person, but how can you say something like that and then like, associate yourself with that family? Maybe that's too harsh. What a weird thing to say. Anyway, and also this is a man to a woman. Remember that, which makes it even weirder. OP continues. So, I met his gaze and said, I trim. It's the best way to be hygienic without causing skin issues. He turned bright red and couldn't believe I answered. He never made a comment like that again to me because I, quote, wasn't any fun. When we got home, my partner gave me a high five because he'd never seen anyone shut the guy up before. Okay, very good story, but what a creep. Again, similar to the previous story, I think like you've got to stop people like this doing stuff like this. This is once again bordering on sexual harassment. It's definitely harassment, isn't it? So for that reason alone, it ranks highly. It's not going to be as high as number 1 because that story was elite. And I think the sailor story was just a bit more funny. So I'm going to put this, actually I'm going to put it at number 4, I think, because the scammer one, again, I hate scammers. That goes in at number 4. Now moving on to number 7. Dark humor got darker than they bargained for. When I was in high school, there were these guys that were friends of a friend, and I'd often eat lunch in the same area. I didn't particularly like them, but I also thought them to be harmless. One day at lunch, I overheard them make a Holocaust joke. Yep, I think it was an oven joke. Haha, very funny. Sarcastic, of course. I turned to them very calmly and I asked them to confirm that they were making a joke. The jerks had no shame. One had said the joke, the other had thought it was hilarious. Once they confirmed, I looked the joke teller straight in the eye and said, this is honest, I'm Jewish. And I watched the blood absolutely drain from these guys' faces. They were speechless, truly horrified. All of their cocky confidence and their smirks over their edgy, dark humor vanished. I hope they still think about that nearly a decade later. How stupid are you to make a joke like this in public with other people around that obviously could very well be Jewish? Not that it matters, by the way. I mean, it's still a terrible joke. Even if other people around you were German or not involved at all, not in any way sort of related, like, you know what I mean? It's not funny. But if you're going to make these jokes, like, at least make them in private. I'm not saying that dark humor doesn't exist, by the way. And I'd be lying if I said I never made a joke bordering on this. Yeah, that's just the truth, all right? So hate me if you want to hate me. But let's be honest. I like dark humor. I think it's quite funny. Not in public, though, where people could get offended and, you know, like, to say this in public and not think and not be surprised that there's a Jewish person that could overhear you is so dumb. Like, you're saying this in public. Oh my God, I'm shocked you're Jewish. Why? A very high percentage of people in the world are Jewish. Like, it's a very common religion. I mean, good revenge from you, but you're just stating a fact. And ultimately, it can't be that good of a revenge because these guys are just idiots. So it's not going to rank that highly for me, but well done for shutting them down nonetheless. I think this one can go in at number 4, below the scammer. I'm just thinking, actually, like, I've got the creepy father-in-law at 4th. Well, now 5th. And the first story, the father-in-law burn, at 6th. I'm just wondering if that should be swapped. We'll think about it at the end. But anyway, that story goes in at number 4. Okay, now moving on to number 8. Thanks for the unsolicited advice on my dying father. Interesting. Got a new co-worker a couple of months back. For reasons, he was obsessed with golfing. After a couple of days of working in each other's vicinity, he decided it was time to get to know his new co-worker, me. It's pretty basic small talk at first, but eventually he starts talking about golf. It's a pleasant enough conversation, and at some point he asked if I ever played. I said no, but that my dad loved to golf. He asked how often my dad golfed, and I gave the answer that he went weekly until he got sick. Oh, well, he can't let some sickness get him down. Gotta power through. That's how you get better. After a while of me dancing around details while he goes on about how my dad needed to get back out there, I finally just tell him that my dad has cancer. Well, he can't let that cancer beat him. My aunt had breast cancer and she never stopped doing the things she loved. Wait, this guy doubled down? Wow, he kept going? Crazy. My dad was diagnosed very recently, so this happened when that wound was very fresh. I interrupted my new friend and I told him that, well, it's a little hard for him to get around now. What with the seizure he had that took his control over the left side of his body, and the surgery he had recently for his stage 4 brain cancer. Holy. I didn't hear another word from him the rest of my shift. He quit before my next one. You got him to quit? He was that embarrassed. Wow. That has catapulted this story right up the leaderboard, I'm going to be honest. The fact that he didn't even come back, he was so shocked. Well, what an idiot. Like, what an idiot. Saying that when you don't know somebody, don't let an illness get them down. Like, that is so dumb. Because you have no idea what illness they might have. But then, when you're told they have cancer, then saying, well, come on, don't let cancer get you down. What? I didn't expect him to be as brain dead as that, but fair play. This is very, very close to the top. Where does this go? Where does this go? Oh, it's so high. I think it's going to go second. I really like the harassment story. I really do. Because there's something about, like, teenage boys just learning early on from a shock not to do terrible things like they were doing. But this guy, I mean, he's already gone. Like, he's working now. He's an idiot. You did get him to quit as well. It's close. Also, my dad had cancer last year. Editor Steve-O, who's editing this video right now, his mum sadly passed away from cancer, which is obviously horrible. 2 of my best mates currently are cycling from the top of Scotland to as far as you can go down the country to the very, very most southern westerly point of England to raise money for one of their dads who also died a couple of years ago now. Maybe it was a couple of years ago, of the same cancer that my dad had. So all that being said, I don't know. Maybe this should be number 1. It's close. It's very, very close. I'm gonna put it at number 2 though. Not because of it's not as serious as the harassment thing. I think just the revenge was more courageous and like out there in the harassment story than this one, but this was still very, very good, and the fact that he quit is so elite. Okay, now moving on to our penultimate story. When will I have kids? I'll tell you when. This was about 10 years ago when this happened. I was in my late 20s. We were coming out of the first recession, and I barely had a PLA, let alone a plan for my life. No idea what a PLA is. I'm going to guess, before I look it up, a pretty loose anus. That's called thinking on the spot. Since the age of 18, I've always been asked when I was going to have kids or if I was pregnant yet. No idea why people were so obsessed with my reproductive organs, but go off, queen. My mum was the worst. Every conversation I would have with her, she would ask, but not because she wanted grandkids, but actually because, according to her, she regretted having kids, and not having them is the greatest thing ever. Did I mention that I'm the second oldest of 5? Okay, surely after like the first couple, you're like, well, I actually don't really like this. I'm going to stop. You don't then go on to have 3 more and be like, okay, maybe the 5th one is where it's all going to turn around. I'm going to love all my kids. No, try for a 6th. You never know. All right, enough backstory about my mum because she is mainly the reason why this happened. She always bragged to her friends that she wasn't a grandmother and none of her kids have kids. Her friends would ask if there was a medical reason why we didn't have kids and things like that, but she was giddy to tell them no. She also would tell them to ask us when they see us why we don't have kids. What a weird lady. One of her friends, Diane, decides to ask me one day when I stopped to see my mum, and she was there. I said the normal, well, now's not a good time. We're not thinking about that now, or we can't afford it at the moment. I tried every which way to let her know that I wasn't trying to have kids and to steer the conversation in another direction, but she wouldn't give up. I finally said, when I stop swallowing is when I'll start having kids, and that shut her right up. My mum laughed her butt off, but she stopped telling her friends or asking me why I don't have kids. Win-win. Wow, a little bit graphic there, but I think that's just a classic traumatize them back post. Getting very annoyed by your mum just spouting a load of rubbish for years and just saying, I'm sick of this. I've been pushed to the end. I've got to try something drastic to get this to stop. And that was definitely drastic. As for rating it, this was just a pretty standard story, I reckon. I think this probably goes in at, what, number 8? Maybe even number 9. It's average, isn't it? Let's put this bottom. You know, it's funny, but that's about it. Okay, number 10. The final story of this episode. By the way, guys, I hope you've been scribbling notes down, amalgamating your list in your own head. Because I want to see, by the way, at the end, what you're thinking. No, that brother is dead. Trigger warning, death of a sibling. Okay. Obligatory context. 7 years ago. Today is actually the anniversary. That's what inspired me to post. I'm an 18-year-old woman. 3 younger brothers and my mum were involved in a nasty car accident that left my oldest and youngest brothers in the children's ICU at a level 1 trauma center. My oldest brother, 16, was awake and alive, but had several broken bones in his legs that required surgery. My middle brother, 15, and my mum were relatively physically unharmed, but my youngest brother, 11, was severely injured and unfortunately never woke up from the coma he was in for 4 weeks. Oh my goodness me. That is a strong opening paragraph. This all happened in a very small town of about 1,000 people, so everyone knew what was going on. And when my youngest brother eventually passed away, everyone knew that too. Well, almost everyone. So the story. Several weeks after he passed, my oldest brother and I went out to the local Hobby Lobby for whatever reason. We were walking through the aisles when the mum of one of the girls I was in high school with came up to us. The dialogue is as follows. She said, "Oh my goodness, OP, I'm so glad that your brother isn't brain dead anymore and is up and walking around." I said, "That brother died. This is the other one." Crickets. "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." Random lady turns beet red and practically sprints away. I know she had good intentions, but my goodness, it isn't as good of a story as some of the others on this sub, but I giggle whenever I think about the absurdity. That time in my life was crazy enough as is, and sometimes you just gotta laugh when you feel like crying. And there we go. That was number 10. Again, I feel like not much of a put down, really, just saying the truth. But the truth sometimes is all you need to say. And the fact that she said the word brain dead is like so bad. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to rank this. I'm not sure it's going to rank as highly as some of the other stories in this episode. In fact, it definitely isn't going to. It might split the father-in-laws. It really might split the father-in-laws. This was a good burn, it was, but that's about all it was. How do I rank this? I mean, this is more clever, which I love. The last one, number 10, is just more like, well, no, my brother actually died. But that is more hard-hitting. So I'm gonna split. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna split the father-in-laws, and this story, number 10, is gonna go in at number 7, and that is gonna complete our list. Okay, so that is the end of this episode. Let's just go over my list from bottom to top, and yeah, see if I want to change anything. Number 10, we've got swallowing. Now, that was very funny. but that's probably about all it was. I think it's all right there, to be fair. Number 9, we've got the teacher. I don't really understand how that guy, obviously girls will be going through puberty around that sort of age, and that, you know, sometimes menstruating can be extremely hard on the body. Like, how do you not know? Surely you're taught about this as a man in a school with girls. Idiotic. But yeah, number 9, I'm happy with that. Number 8, father-in-law burn. It was good. It was clever, as I just said, but you know, it wasn't special. 7, brain dead. I'm happy with that there. Number 6 is the creepy father-in-law. I've got that as high as I do, not because the revenge was great, just because I feel like that guy needed to be put down. I mean that in more ways than one. Like, he probably should be shot. Dignitas is calling, mate. Answer the phone. Number 5, Jewish. I've written that down as Jewish. I'm not quite sure about that, but anyway. Holocaust jokes, they're funny. Okay? In the right context. Not in public, where people could get offended by them. They're also not that funny. That was a joke in and of itself, but they can be funny if well set up. My sort of mantra with humor is that you've got to laugh at everything, unless it's too soon. I've been to a few concentration camps in my time, and goodness me, are they funny. Dark humor. Number 4, scammer. I'm happy with that there because I do hate scammers. They are terrible people. Number 3, sailor. That is just elite. That probably is the cleverest one of all. The fact that he doesn't have a thumb and he's just like quickly thought about that and just whipped it out. Obviously, he hasn't lost his thumb from sucking it, unless he has. And then if that was the case, then it wouldn't be that clever. It would just be quite sad, and you'd have to admire his sucking ability. Was he gay? It's important context that I'd love to know. Number 2, cancer. I think it's got to be as high as that. Very, very serious. And yeah, you can't have people just doubling down on the fact that your dad's ill and therefore can't play golf, and actually no, he should play golf. The fact that he quit his job as well, phenomenal. And number 1, harassment, because the balls, ironically, that it takes of you, OP, that girl, to do what you did in your full classroom and cause a full-on assembly about sexual harassment is just elite. Definitely number 1. And that concludes my list. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not? I actually really enjoyed that video. I might do this again in future, because when you have quite a few short posts, I can't just really like read them all and not rank them. It's a natural thing that I do anyway. So yeah, let me know down below. What do you think about this episode, the format? What do you think about my list? And yeah, let me know if you want to see it again. If you want more Traumatize Them Back content right away, check out another episode on screen. This is the most recent one, apart from this one, of course. If you're new to the channel, subscribe for more content like this. Maybe I can do some more top 10 lists, and I'll catch you on the next one.